Questions for oral answer. Question number 1 in the name of Mckelvie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question to the Minister of Finance. What progress is the government making in building a more competitive and productive economy as one of its priorities for this term of Parliament?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
On behalf of the Minister of Finance, in the last hour or so I gave a speech in Auckland which covers this very question. There is broad agreement amongst commentators, that's right, that New Zealand is doing well compared to other developed economies, and that we are making good progress. Our economy is growing, employment is increasing, wages are rising, households and businesses are benefiting from low inflation and a long period of stable low interest rates. We're also making good progress in improving public services in areas like welfare, health, education and law and order. And we're pressing on with wide-ranging economic reforms under the business growth agenda to support more jobs and higher incomes.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Mckelvie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. How will the budget on 21 May build on the progress with the government's economic program, and what will it be its main areas of focus?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, the government's 7th budget on the 21st of May will set out the next steps in our economic program. We have 3 very busy years ahead of us and there's much to do. Our approach will remain clear and predictable. We will stay focused on the 4 main priorities, which are responsibly managing the government's finances, building a more productive and competitive economy, delivering better public services and continuing to support the rebuild of Christchurch. We have progressed all of these priorities in the last term, and that is helping us to ensure New Zealanders and their families benefit from a growing economy and the government's responsible management.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
How does the Minister think a, quote, more competitive and productive economy will be created when today we learn that total goods exports were down by 371 million or 9.1% in the last year?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I'd say to the member, just be careful not to get carried away with each month's exports, so you'll be in this emotional roller coaster up and down, Mr Speaker. What I can tell the member is that last year New Zealand's exports of goods passed $50 billion for the first time, despite the high exchange rates that exporters have been challenged with.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
What progress does the Minister think he is making to his 7-year target of lifting exports from 30% to 40% of GDP when they have fallen by 9% on a 1-year basis, not on a monthly basis, Minister?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, the member again needs to be aware that just before that decline there was a big increase. So he can take the view that it's all turning to the proverbial in a handbasket, Mr Speaker, but actually most New Zealanders are impressed with the resilience of New Zealand's export sector through a very tough period of the global financial crisis and high exchange rates relative to the US dollar. Mr Speaker, we will continue to challenge that target, but I would point out to the member the other thing that's happened in the meantime is that the Statistics Department has rebased New Zealand's exports over the last 20 or so years, and that has made the target harder to achieve.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Mckelvie.
How are the growing economy and the government's responsible economic management translating into real benefits for New Zealand families?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, New Zealand's families are benefiting from the government's program in several important ways. For example, from 1st of April this year, paid parental leave will increase by 2 weeks to 16 weeks and by another 2 weeks from 1st of April next year. The parental tax credit will rise from $150 a week to $220 a week, and the entitlement will increase from 8 to 10 weeks. The government's new Home Start scheme will help around 90,000 Kiwis into their first home over the next few years, and New Zealand's superannuation will increase by another 2.07%, which means that super will have increased by 31% since April 2008, double the rate of inflation over that time. Then from 1st of July, Mr Speaker, children under 13 will have access to free GP visits and free prescriptions, and the average ACC levy for a private motor vehicle will fall by around $130 a year.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Mckelvie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What other indicators confirm that the economy is heading in the right direction, particularly compared to many other developed countries?
Honourable Stephen
Mr.
Jones.
Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, there are a number of positive indicators. Our challenge over the next few years is to ensure the economy continues to grow solidly. Current signs are very encouraging. Business investment increased from $30.5 billion in 2010 to $38.4 billion last year. It's an $8 billion improvement in real terms in just 4 years. And 146,000 additional new jobs created in the past 2 years represent the strongest employment growth we've seen in this country for over a decade. Forecasts show the economy growing by an average of about 3% a year over the next 5 years, following annual growth of between 2 and 3% over the last 3 years. This would be, if it comes to pass, an 8-year stretch of sustained growth, supporting more jobs and higher incomes following the domestic recession we inherited in 2008 and the global financial crisis.
Question number 2, the Honourable